Welcome, everybody, to the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association's Facebook page and our Share Your Story program. And tonight we're going to hear from a gentleman who will be introduced in just a moment. Wanted to tell you a little bit more about the program while you all populate in here. For those of you who are watching it later, we are live at 3:30 on January 31st, 2018. So the Share Your HCM Story program is an opportunity for us to allow you to see the true faces of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. HCM is a very diverse disease and it impacts people differently. We want to show all of the different demographics that it affects, all of the different people, the ages, and their personal experiences with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. If you would like to participate in one of these videos and share your story, you can contact the HCMA by emailing us at support@4hcm.org or calling the office at 973-983-7429. All that information can be found on our website, the number 4hcm.org. So without further ado, I am going to welcome John Huggins to the program. And John, good afternoon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, everybody. My name is John Huggins. I am 34 years old and a teacher from Johnsonville, South Carolina, a tiny little town sits in between Florence and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And other than revealing what all we're going to talk about, Lisa, I don't know what else to say.
Okay, well, that was a good introduction, John, so thank you. So my first question to you is, when is the first time you heard the terms hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?
The first time I was given the term hypertrophic cardiomyopathy was on my 18th birthday. I was sitting in a cardiologist's office and he looked at me and said, "You have this." And of course, at 18 years old, I was like, "Huh? How do you say that?" But that was the first time I was ever told what I had.
So even though that's the first time you were told you had HCM, when was the first time that you really feel like you had symptoms that were related to HCM?
Looking back, I wonder if around the age of in sixth grade or so that I started having some really bad lightheadedness and stuff. So I look back and I wonder if that was the symptoms then trying to come out, but I guess we'll never know for sure from then or not.
Right, because you didn't have the echocardiogram, so it was hard to tell. Has anybody else in your family been diagnosed with HCM?
Yes, my dad has.
And how long ago was that?
He was diagnosed, I think we were talking about the other day, I think it's about 30 plus years that he's been diagnosed.
So the interesting thing here is, Dad had been diagnosed a long time. You were 6th, 7th grade having symptoms, but nobody put 2 and 2 together to screen you at that point, did they?
We did some checking, like we went to doctors. There was one echo done, but they said they didn't see anything. I'm not sure. So, but nothing was ever found and nothing was ever said, yes, you have it, or no, you don't.
How often did you get screening?
That was the only time until another doctor heard my murmur very, very distinctly until I was about 18 or until I was about 17 years old.
Okay, so we get the diagnosis at 17. When was the echo before then? How old were you?
Around 6th grade. There was one echo done.
Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second for an educational moment. This is those teachable moments. We tell people within hypertrophic cardiomyopathy families that we should do screenings on children and adolescents every 12 to 18 months from the onset of puberty till their early 20s. Now, John's story is that there was a screening, but then there was a gap of time, a murmur detected, then another screening. We probably could have found it a little bit earlier and maybe could have gotten in there and helped you with the symptoms earlier. So that's a really interesting, story that happens a lot. We think we're screening them enough because, what's the difference between 12 and 15? With your heart, there's a lot of difference. So we encourage families to get screened. So how has HCM impacted your life now? You're 34, you're a teacher. What does it mean to have HCM?
There's a lot of times where I still have some shortness of breath, and that kind of stuff, a struggle. Stairs are like my worst enemy. I can't make it to the top of a set of stairs without having to stop for a few minutes and catch my breath. I'm not as active in my classroom probably as I wish I could be, because sometimes I get a little winded. Not as bad in the classroom because, I'm not running, moving fast, but at times there it is there. And there's, other odds and ends, slight lightheaded spells, those kind of things just interrupt things.
And what therapy are you utilizing now for your HCM?
Currently, I am on Cardizem twice a day, as well as Sotalol twice a day. Mm-hmm. And I also have an ICD implanted.
Okay. And do we remember why we had the ICD implanted?
Because when I was first diagnosed, the doctors were concerned because of my enlargement.
So
because of how large I was.
Okay. And you've not at this point been evaluated by an HCMA recognized center of excellence, correct?
No, I have not.
Okay. So as John and I were getting acquainted the other day preparing for this interview, it came up that maybe we don't have things quite optimized yet. And there might be some opportunity to improve upon his quality of life by maybe either evaluating with another physician who specializes in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or going back to his own physician with some pointed questions. So he and I are going to be working on that coming down the line. And we might come back and revisit this and let you know how things turned out, but we'll let you know on that one. So, John, what do you want people to know about living with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?
Excuse me.
Other than to have water prepared for doing an interview.
I know, right? Yes, it is scary. It's scary to hear those words for the first time because you have no clue what's going on. Mm-hmm. There is hope. There can be life with it. But God, please don't wait to call Lisa and the HCMA. I've waited, and I could be having a little bit more done and things be a little bit better. Because especially after our conversation yesterday, I looked at my dad and I was like, I should have talked to them sooner. And we both should have. So we're both working on it, and we're both working to have a better future rather than looking on the past.
Yeah, we will talk about your dad's situation here. Maybe we'll bring Dad in for part two, so he can share what's going on with his situation. But I think we can actually help both of you get on a path that could improve your quality of life and the longevity of your lives. But that'll be a cliffhanger for part two of this. So other than people with HCM, your suggestion for them to call earlier, to the undiagnosed population and the general population out there, are there any messages about what HCM means to somebody who hasn't?
It's something that don't just assume because somebody looks and be like, I can't make that run, I can't make that whatever else. It's not because they're lazy or anything else like that. Sometimes we physically can't. We want to. God, we want to so bad. But sometimes we just can't. We can't do it no matter what we do. And that's one of the hard things for us. And we need other people to understand and realize that we have an internal disease that you can't necessarily always see.
Yeah, we kind of look normal on the outside, don't we?
Yes,
so
definitely.
It can become distracting. So if there's any questions that they'd like to ask either myself or John, you're welcome to ask them right now while we're live. If you ask, we'll call them reruns. We'll address them online later. But if you have any questions or comments, you're more than welcome to add them now. I just want to take a few minutes and kind of talk about being in rural America with a diagnosis of HCM. It's probably a little bit different experience than being in a larger city with access to a really high level program when you're living in rural America. And, case cardiology is different than high level HCM Center of Excellence care. Do you think that might have had an impact on your screening and your diagnosis and your management where you live? And what do you think we might be able to do to help that?
Yes, I do think that had some aspects of it. because even where I'm going now is still a little over 2 hours away from us.
Okay.
And that's just driving. The closest center of excellence, I think we talked about yesterday, is somewhere in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a hindrance. And I think I would love to see one open up in South Carolina. I'd love for us to have one in all states.
Yeah.
And I know that would be a dream for you too. But
I'm working on it.
I know. But I think, but just in general, if cardiologists could get at least general training in what HCM is and how to address it.
Yeah, unfortunately, they do tend to get some experience in their education with it, but they don't tend to bring it into clinical practice as often as we'd like them to, probably because they don't recognize that they're seeing it quite as much as they are. We recently had a conversation on our Facebook group where somebody was told by a cardiologist that we don't use the term hypertrophic cardiomyopathy anymore, and it's really not that big of a deal. Yes, we do use the term hypertrophic cardiomyopathy currently, and for some people it's not that big of a deal, but for other people it's a really big deal. So we want to make sure people understand that. Okay, well, it looks like we have a small crowd today. We're catching them at a weird hour. Most people are either getting their kids from school or still at work, so we'll, I'm sure, pick up some viewership after we end this today. Oh, we have some contact here. So Rosemary has a question. Is there a center in or around Pittsburgh? Why, yes, there is. UPMC, and Dr. Timothy Wong runs the program at UPMC, and you can find the directory for all centers of excellence located on the HCMA website. So that's the number 4hcm.org, and you can just go to the directory and look by state and find them there. So we do have centers there. The closest center to you, John, is the Sanger program up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the opposite direction, it's a little bit further, would be Atlanta. We're working to recognize the program at Duke. That's coming up soon, so hopefully that'll happen. But while I've got you here and we have a few minutes and people are asking about centers, we just finished applications for the University of Iowa and Scripps in San Diego. So they're on my list of places to visit in the coming months. And we have about 4 other programs that are in process of putting their applications together. And good news to my followers in Maryland, we have a new program that is starting the process to be recognized because we lost a center there because doctors moved, and now it looks like we might be getting another one. Hopefully by fall we should have that one recognized. Christine, we interviewed her last week. She sees Dr. Birnbaum at KU. So there you go. And it's huge range of, yeah, there you go. So yeah, you got one of your fellow HCMers watching there. So yes. Any parting thoughts, John?
Just be aware, advocate for yourself, and don't hesitate to, like you told me just before we started, don't hesitate to be greedy. You have one life and live it the best you can. Exactly.
The greedy comment comes into, you know, if you're going to feel, this is all you got. You got this one vessel that takes you through however many years you're given on this earth. You might as well tune it up as best you can. They're not all perfect. They don't all work the same, but you might as well make the best of what you got and use all of the resources that are currently available to you. And if you're not sure where those resources are, please contact people who can direct you to where they might be. Okay, so we're going to sign off here in a minute. Again, if you want to participate in HCM Share Your Story, just email us at support@4hcm.org, and you can call the office. All that information is available on our website. I do have a little addition to this. We just arranged for a new intern to start in a week, and her job is going to be to write up the narrative of this story and put it on the HCMA website, so these stories will also live within the HCMA website, so people who are just getting diagnosed and finding us can see real people like themselves diagnosed with HCM living it. So you can get us on Facebook, you can see this on YouTube in another day or so, and then it'll also be located on the HCMA site. So Rosemary says thank you, and Christine says great advice. So on that note, John, I thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm very interested to see where this is going to take us when we dig into things a little bit more and make sure that your health is optimized and you know where to go and what questions to ask about your individualized heart. So I look forward to working with you through that process, and we'll be talking soon. So thank you, everybody. And we're done here.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ending broadcast now.